Hello, my name is Willie James Jennings, and I am very thankful to be here with you and to participate in this neighborhood economics conference. The matters we are considering here are crucial and urgent. The question I want to explore with you for a few moments is this: can a neighborhood be immoral? Can a neighborhood be immoral? I don't mean immoral by the people in it, but by the very structure of it. Can it be immoral in how it was conceived, and how it was built, or how it was torn down, or how it was rebuilt? Can it be immoral in how it was configured or reconfigured in relation to its town or its city or in its state? I asked this question in order to bring together two things that are really thought together: a neighborhood and a moral vision. In fact, I contend that the very idea of a neighborhood is a matter of moral vision. Unfortunately, the way too many people think about neighborhoods lack any moral imagination or any moral compass. More to the point, we live in this country in the midst of violent geographies formed at the nexus of race and greed. If we're going to bring a moral compass to the work of rethinking and building up neighborhoods, then we are going to have to rethink what it means to own and what it means to build. What it means to own and what it means to build. What does it mean to own? And what should it mean to own? As you all know, in America, ownership is everything. And ownership, as you all know, in this country and in the Western world has a very troubled history. Those first Christian settlers who came to this country brought with them two crucial ideas within which that troubled history would form. Those ideals were providence and productivity. Providence and productivity. Providence. This was the idea that God had brought them to the new worlds in order to give them the land. They would be the new Israel here in this new land. And just like ancient Israel entering the land of promise, it would not matter who lived there in the land before they arrived. The land would begin again with them. Productivity. This was the idea that if you made the land productive, you may claim it as your own. Unproductive land was empty land, and therefore land outside its purpose given by God. Riding in on the winds of this distorted and sick theology, Christian colonial settlers believed that they could be owners in an absolute sense, like the landed gentry of the old world, or like royalty of the past who would pass on their holdings to their children and their children's children. No longer hidden among the masses of the peasantry in the shadows of history, now they could emerge with a name, with dignity and power and influence and wealth because they were landowners. For indigenous peoples, this dream of land ownership was a nightmare built on an absurdity. How could anyone think? How could anyone think they could own the earth, make claim on the sky and to water and to animals? This was the right question. And those Christian settlers should have heard it in all its rhetorical power because they knew better. They knew that the earth belonged and belongs only to the Lord, and that they were called to live responsibly in God's world as one among all of God's creatures. But those Christian settlers dreamed a greedy dream in a country of breathtaking resources and land beyond any of their wildest dreams. And with the power to take it, they turned the land into a commodity and made ownership absolute. They surrendered their Christian faith to the dream of ownership and the possibility of a market that could make them new. That is key. What every immigrant coming to America learned was that here you could have land and transform it and thus transform yourself. Whoever lived on this land before you is inconsequential to what you do with the land now. It is yours now. And the history of America is the history of taking, segmenting, selling, and holding land and dreaming my life on my land, dreaming my freedom, my independence, my sovereignty, my authority, my wealth, my power, my productivity, and even my masculinity through my land. This was a vision of ownership that not only denied the past, but it also tied ownership to the individual. Through this vision, we all would learn to look out on the world, to look at land, and the first question we were formed to ask was, who owns this? Who owns this? But in order to ask this question first, it requires we deny the real first questions about life and land. Who lived here? Who lives here? And who will I live with here? These are the questions that indigenous peoples pressed on those first Christian settlers. And we, with them, through their legacy, have denied those questions ever since. What it means to own must be transformed from thinking about what I can do with my place, my property, to thinking about who do I live with and how should I be as one who knows who I live with, not just people, but plants and animals and trees and water and landscape, not just those close neighbors, but the neighborhoods that surround me. This kind of thinking, ancient thinking, and deeply moral thinking has been missing in America. And we have built worlds that deny these very questions. So what does it mean to build? And what should it mean to build? Friends, this is our legacy. Let's be clear. This is our legacy. This country's building project, its way of building, formed on the backs of Black slaves and the bodies of indigenous peoples. This is not new news, but we have never reckoned with the habits of building woven deep into the American psyche. What are those habits of building? They can be characterized with three words: segregation, control, and commerce. Segregation, control, and commerce. We build constantly inside and toward segregation. We learned very early that you can build your hatred and your revulsion toward Black people into the very shape of your communities, your neighborhoods, your towns, and your cities. And we do so in order to control place and the places of our meeting. Indeed, the desire to control places has been an inner logic of the American built environment. Of course, inside the desire to control are the operations of commerce. We have accepted a truth that we have made godlike. Where we live is first a matter of the market. What it means to build must be transformed from thinking inside segregation, control, and commerce to thinking about a life together that reverses the tragic trajectory of America's habits of building. Now, friends, we must not put a band-aid on this by thinking too narrowly. More is at stake than addressing things like food deserts or adding small businesses to underserved, poor Black, brown, and white communities. More is at stake than just rehearsing ideas about community development and empowerment. All of these things are good and true, but we must change the vision of building, turn it toward life and not more captivity. A well-served, segregated community is not a blessing, but a curse. A town or a city or a state where everyone is kept in their place, their movements nicely monitored and controlled, organized through the fabricated categories of rural, urban, and suburban, marks a costly freedom that is not free at all. Places where people live oblivious to the human realities of suffering and pain and disadvantage all around them is nothing to be proud of, but something to mourn. Another kind of building is possible. Think of building as noun and verb. Another kind of building is possible. In the church I grew up in, on most Sundays, before the offering, the pastor or a deacon would read the words from the prophet Malachi, chapter 3, which says, "Will a person rob God? Will a person rob God?" And the people reply in that passage, "How are we robbing you, God?" And God says to the nation that you rob me by the way you have structured your life. Then God gives the promise in that passage. If you will change the structure, then I will make this land a land of delight, is the phrase in Hebrew, a land of delight. And it was only after hearing this passage that we were ready to get up and give our offering. There is structural work ahead of us, my friends. And I believe that there are many of us ready and eager to do that work. Thank you very much.